She put a pot on she hair and gone. Them a the first one out on the dam. Basket on she head, bucket in each hand. Hold up on she frack, I wanna she grandson. To the market, them a go. For the morning, the day is dawning. For cockcrow to give the villagers a warning. Rise and shine, the birds them a sing. All animal take turn as them join in the waking. Cockcrow, dagaba, donkey, bray, horse, and they even duck a quack. Cockcrow, dagaba, donkey, bray, horse, and they even duck a quack. Come and hear this sweet story that tell the people about life in the country. All day a back down, me now a come home. Inaga, jackass yard for fetch the load. Cockle shy hand, bag over shoulder, running by his side, a Rexy and Rover. From the farm, them a come. Sun a go down but up the river. Some washing clothes, some folks are bathing at the water. Fisherman, they catch them a bring. From a canoe boat, man, them start offloading.
But guess what? My brothers and sisters, their angry bills in the billions of American dollars. And what are we getting as Guyanese? A few $100 million.
Listen to this sweet story that tell the people about life in the country. Them children glad when the weekend come. Out in the yard, them all gather round. Some a play catcher, some making house from straw. Two who come later, a grandma or grandpa. All a sit down just a wait. Moonlight so bright, it's just the right time to listen story or to say a little nursery rhyme. Grandpa voice a echo in the night as he tell the tale. Some picnic are there with fright. Oh, Ligan, Mungeza, Massa Kurma Nancy, even Watamuma. Oh, Ligan, Moongeza, Massa Kurma Nancy, even Watamuma. Yeah, man, that's the true story that tell the people about life in the country, life in the country.
Hi, yes, good morning. Even at this time, it's 8 minutes after 11 o'clock Guyana time. Lots of things happening in Guyana. And I just want to welcome you guys to this program, this early morning program, so to speak, because a very important event in Guyana that is happening even as I speak. I just heard the speech by, or what can be described as a speech there, by Irfan Ali addressing members in attendance of that oil and gas event in Guyana. Obviously, what is absent, the big picture in this, is no mention of the opposition. None whatsoever. No mention of the opposition. He said hello and thank you to the diplomatic corps. He said thank you to the visiting dignitaries. He said thank you to everyone for being there, except 49+% of the people of Guyana, except the opposition. Hey, that's a shame and a disgrace. So do share the link. And like I said, this is about the oil Expo, the so-called Oil and Gas Expo. I have members of Parliament, Mr. Kamraj Ramjatan and Mr. David Patterson with me here this morning. And yes, here it is. We have Mr. Ramjatan. Good morning, sir. How are you?
Good morning, Mark Balram Benchkoff.
Yep, you do remember my name, Balram, from the quarantine. Thanks a lot. You're giving my listeners a lot of information. Good morning, David, Irfan, Patterson.
Yeah, well, good morning. Good morning. Pleasure to be here. Lovely intro song, Mark. And I don't think I've actually heard that particular song before. Lovely, very nostalgic.
Yes, lovely indeed. Thank you both for being on with me this morning at such a short notice. Let's begin. Even as we speak, there are a few folks out there in front of the area where the Oil and Gas Expo is being held, and they're protesting. A few of them are out there protesting. Your take on this protest and what's happening right now as we speak. Mr. Ramjatan, leader of the AFC.
Well, I am glad that at least there are some protesters out there. It signals the fact that there are people who find that it is necessary to actively show their dissension to what has happened. And it shows that the entire oil sector is not without critics, and it's important that they're there. I would have really wanted some more people to be there to express that kind of dissension and protestation. But it goes to show that at least there is a community in Guyana who would do the activism of getting out there, knowing very well that there are criticisms of that, of the whole sector and the way the government is treating them and also treating with the sector.
Well said. Before we go to Mr. Patterson, here's I've noticed, if our operator can just get it up there, I've noticed Mohammed Fraud, I don't know if that's the person's real name, but quite appropriate, is saying not opposition out there. Why? Who wants to take a bite of that?
Well, morning, Mark.
Morning, sir.
And morning to your listeners and viewers. Look, the civil society, the opposition has protested several issues before. The civil society has taken a lead on it. And we want the world and the attendees to take note, because it's not just the opposition. I mean, we've been quite active in Parliament, as you know, on this oil and gas issue. You know what happened with the Natural Resources Fund. You know that I myself would have brought at least 4 motions, 3 were debated and defeated. So it's good that the civil society is taking a lead. It does not mean that they're not supported by the opposition, but we don't want to detract from it, because obviously what the government will do immediately, soon they see an opposition person said, the opposition here is part of it and is an organized thing. People in the world must know, of course, that it's not just the opposition that are finding them despicable, undemocratic, dictatorial. That is ordinary citizens as well. So I do think sometimes you have to let civil society lead when it comes to some of these matters. We will take it back up again.
But, some people might say, who cares what the PPP says? Who cares what the PPP think as to whether the opposition is out there protesting or not? Mr. Ramjatan, as leader of the AFC, who cares what the PPP say? You guys were not invited. You guys were not invited.
Yeah, well, we were not invited to the actual conference. But coming back to your question of who cares what the PPP says, we, to a certain extent, as opposition, must care. Remember, the opposition is being made de minimis. We are being completely humiliated by non-invitations to a national event. An event, because of our government's signing of the deal, whatever the defects of it might be, has caused all of this to happen now. Oh yes, we are out of government. Irfan Ali and his team isn't there, but they ought to have had that generosity of spirit, that, large-heartedness, being magnanimous, to ensure that members, if not all, at least a representative sample of the members of the opposition were invited there this morning. We had done that in the previous 2, I think, that we had, and they did come, as a matter of fact. And that is how you do this thing. But here it is, big event, nothing from the opposition side, nobody from the opposition side being invited, and it is just the humiliation being made de minimis continues. I suspect, again, as I have this thesis going, it's control freakism of a Jack the White faction inside of that party that wants to control these things, and as against a pragmatist, that there is a faction there out there of some pragmatists. Well, we should really invite them, but no, we want them to come for. Let them not come at all, and that is the end of the matter.
Have you guys?
And it's a real bad thing for our country.
Have you guys, as a collective body, APNU, AFC, and the other coalition partners, met on this non-invite issue on such an important expo where dignitaries from other countries, the president of Ghana, the prime minister of Barbados, the president of Suriname, and so forth, were invited? And you guys, have you guys met collectively on this non-invite issue?
Well, Mark, during the recent sittings of Parliament, it was discussed. I think we issued a joint press statement on it. It was discussed with us, in the sense that, first and foremost, what the PPP does is try and divide and conquer. So we sat down and we said, has anybody been invited? And then it will confirm, because of course what the PPP would do, and you know this well, Mark, they would say, oh, we invited Mr. Ramjatan, but that may be in his personal capacity or not, So we confirmed that none of the MPs, none of the opposition persons, AFC for sure, APNU also confirmed that no one was invited. So we issued a joint statement saying this, no one's invited. Of course, the organizers immediately issued a statement saying that they didn't exclude anybody. But if you don't include us, you are by in fact being exclusionary. And let me tell you what previously would happen, Mark. You may not. We can understand a keynote speaker that Irfan want to be the keynote speaker. I hope they didn't use any big words. I hope for him to have any difficulty in pronunciation. I don't know why they do that to him, Mark. Is it, they put in words, that they know valedictorium and those things that they know that out of anything over 3 syllables he struggles with, and they still include it. I think it's a deliberate ploy by Jack Dio and his crew to show up his early degrees and those things like that. Anyway, so you can understand him wanting to be the keynote speaker, no problem at all. But what we did for sure is invited them, the opposition, and they turned up. Jack Dio, there was Shem Nocta, there was Anil, right? And they would turn up, and we put them on the panels. So you have a panel discussion, several panel discussions, on oil and gas, and they can air their views. It doesn't have to be, and they did. It doesn't have to be supportive of the government, but it shows the investors the totality of the Guyanese thinking, which is, as you said, of 49 plus, just under 50% of the population. It allows investors who are coming here and clamoring here for to be part of the oil and gas industry. It gives them the full breadth of what they're coming to in Guyana, because obviously 50% can't run a country. Neither can 49. It takes the entire 100%. And I could say this particularly from the matter of local content. We, in the opposition, obviously, we supported the passage of a local content bill. We submitted amendments. They didn't accept them, but they brought them back. But that was childish of them. So they're coming here, and I'm sure people would like to know what is the country's, not the government, what's the country's position on local content. You have to invite the trade unions. You can't just have GAU. I don't know if GAU is invited, but you have to invite the trade unions, because obviously people want to know, are you going to be unionized? Are you going to not? And those in there. So you're selling your country. You're not selling the PPP, but that's exactly what they're doing.
All right, it's exactly what they're doing. Santoki, President Santoki, no stranger to you, Kemraj, and David, when Santoki was the minister of security. He did a lot of things when the PPP were in office, so he understands the nature of that beast, the PPP beast. Now he's president of the country. He spoke about what Suriname did to consult with all stakeholders. Has anyone in the opposition attempt to meet with the president to let him know, the president of Suriname, Mr. Santoki, to let him know that all stakeholders were not consulted in Guyana? The main opposition party, the coalition parties, were not consulted, were not invited. Trade unions were not consulted or invited. How are you guys going to approach in order to let the people know that the opposition and the trade unions were shut out of this conference, sir?
Well, we have planned a couple of things. We want to go there at the actual
buy our tickets, sir.
Right. We have bought our tickets and so on, and we will be going there, several groups of us. And we hopefully going to meet some of these players. If we can't meet them, well, we certainly will publicize it in talks like this with Mark Benskoff and other people, and make it public that we were not invited. And this is not the inclusiveness, but this promotion of the PPP. They don't like the broad spectrum approach at all, like we had when we even put them, as David just mentioned and reminded me, into the panels, so that the investors coming in will also know and have a taste of what the opposition's perspective is, and so on. And we allowed that in the last two. They're having theirs now, and this is their approach. So, and I want to believe that these presidents, and like Mia Motley and all, they are going to, in a sense, as they do in very diplomatic way, spur them on to say things like this to them. And I want to believe that, knowing Santoki, I had close relationship with relation to the big murders out of the sea there. The important thing, talking to them would mean that they are going to appreciate that this non-inclusiveness is a bad thing for a country, because non-inclusiveness can create mutinies. Understand that, Mark. Understand that, viewers. That can create mutinies, disenchantment, resentment, mutinies. And mutinies can have impacts for a neighboring country. If you don't involve everybody, you don't know what the environmental results of a spill can be. I am now being told that Guyana will not be affected because of the nature of the tides and the wind. It will go straight on to Trinidad and then circle around in the Caribbean Sea onto Barbados and things like that. They must know that if we here don't get it right, they're the ones that are going to suffer. And I think Mia, brilliant woman that she is, will be respected all the more, when she brings these points, as I understand that she did, telling them that good decisions got to be made and all of us got to be involved. All of us got to be involved also means that the opposition here in Guyana.
All right, all has to be involved, but the PPP, the installed PPP regime has shut you guys out, and you guys got to get to people like the president of Ghana, who is currently in Guyana. I'm sure he's watching Glenn Lal and others out there protesting. They're concerned, not just civil society, members of civil society. They want to hear the voices of all. The main opposition, the biggest bloc shut out. People want to hear that you guys have been shut out, and put the PPP on blast. Put them on blast. David?
Correct, Mark. So as Kamraj explained, what we've done, we've pooled together and we bought tickets in 3 clusters, AP and UAFC. A team is there today, and our objective is to go and meet each and every one of these, Darren Wood, Santoki, Mia, the president of Ghana, and all the players, and stand there one-on-one and present to them our issues of things. We know the government will try to shepherd them away from us and block us access and those things like that. But we are going to try, and deliver our message to them directly. So, and then we can come out here and say that, well, I spoke to the Miss Mia Mortley, or one of our teams spoke to Miss Mia. So we did 3-day or 4-day conference. So we're ensuring that there's a team of at least six or eight MPs there, purchase our own tickets, nothing free, and we go in there to speak to them, to explain our issues and let them know from the, as you can say, from the horse's mouth, the issues and the challenges we have. I mean, because obviously what happens if, I mean, the protesting is good and then we support it. Well, you know, Mark, me and you have a long protesting history. Don't know if you don't want your viewers to know that, but myself and yourself been protesting all sort of manner of issues over the years. This is way back. So the protesters are good, but what happens is that these convoys could just fly past the protesters and they don't get to interact. So we're trying to do the more direct, impactful protests. Go there, say to them, I'm Cameron Dramtime, I'm David Patson, I'm the Shadow Minister for Oil and Gas. These are the concerns that we have. I mean, you haven't heard from us because we've been excluded, but nevertheless, as I'm here, we have issues with this, and we'd appreciate if you can look at whatever handles or contact us. Your office can contact us. Have an engagement. We know the PPP will have the likes of the former chairman of the Private Sector Commission on there's people's hands. You know what I mean? Like Captain Jerry Gavai, he will be like a guide dog. Him and the Private Sector Commission. Come, I want you to meet this person soon. They see them and try to shepherd them away, but we will do our thing.
All right. If you're now joining us, this is a live program to talk about the Expo, the Oil Expo, where the main opposition, they've been shut out. Now, you know, persons probably thought that, look, here what happened. A nice full-page ad this morning in the Kaichor News or maybe in the Stabrook News to let these visiting dignitaries and other officials know what is happening in the country. It is not the one Guyana that Irfan Ali is talking about. It is a divided Guyana under PPP regime. No full-page ad, nothing at all, gentlemen.
There was a full-page ad in it's an open letter from citizens of Guyana to Mia Mortley. There was a full-page ad in I saw it in Stabrook News. Saying and it was signed by like about 50 or 60 persons, but no full page. A public letter to me, to the Honorable Mia Morty, Prime Minister of Barbados, and it highlighted several of the issues which we're talking about here. What Cameron mentioned about the matter of security, the matter of insurance, and those things like that. By the way, Mark, I intend to move a motion right now in Parliament. Lay one, of course, has to get past that very accommodating speaker on insurance. I want to do that today. Actually, that's one of the things I come in to do. So while they're here, they conceded the opposition has moved the motion on the same full coverage insurance, which is to address this environmental issue that we have. I have the motion prepared and everything like that. I'm just tidying it up. So sometime today, I'll be after this. I'll let you it. The issue is that right now, Exxon, Hess, and CNOG, they formed what you call a shell company. Their parent companies are in the United States for Exxon and Hess, and then in China for CNOG. They formed a parent company, a shell company in Guyana called EEPGL. This shell company in Guyana has no assets whatsoever. However, what the government has allowed them to do is this shell company is to take out the insurance up to a limited amount. I can't remember how much it is. It's not one current thing. So if there's an oil spill, which Cameron just alluded to, it spreads around the Caribbean, just like what happened off the Gulf of Mexico. But when countries and people sue for their beaches to be cleaned up, they will be suing this local company which has no assets, it has no directors and those things like that, and Exxon and those, and obviously all that the local company will do is probably declare bankruptcy, and the Guyana government, the people of Guyana, obviously as the owner of the oil, will be left holding the bill. What we want is that the parent companies must be liable as well. So therefore, obviously, so Exxon in Houston, which is a multi-billion-dollar company, Hess they're in Houston as well. They're a multi-billion-dollar company in CNOG headquarters. So if there's an oil spill or any disaster or any issue, and that's called full coverage insurance, if there's any issue and the cost is of so much that a local shell company can't pay, that these foreign companies are liable to pay. The parent companies, we can sue them. And that is what everyone else does. That's what we had in place in before August 2020, but the PP has reversed it. So that is one of the issues which we want to carry to the Parliament. I'm going to have the motion issued. So when they read the papers tomorrow, me and Mortley will see it out of the parliamentary opposition and demanding this full coverage, which will safeguard to some extent her beaches. And so when she sits down with Irfan and Barrett and them they start speaking kumbaya, she can raise this. What about the insurance if there is a spill and to cover
that's good, assuming that she would be hearing or listening. It seems as though she has her mind all bent on whatever Irfan they told her, and seem to be ignoring the opposition, which is unlike Maya, what she's doing in her country. And I say that because Mr. Ramjatan said that you guys purchase your tickets and you'll be going to this function. I can bet my last 200 Guyana dollars that those visiting dignitaries will not be meeting with you guys, because Irfan Ali and them will usher them away from meeting with the opposition. Or maybe some of them will be afraid to meet with the opposition. But Mr. Ramjatan, I listened to a piece of Irfan's ranting there at that conference. He spoke about this unity, this so-called unity. He's always talking about the unity, but the evidence of a divided Guyana by the PPP, by Irfan Ali's installed government, it is obvious. What is your take on his hypocrisy, sir?
Well, it is rather blatant and being flagrantly exercised. The whole world knows that since they've gone into government, all the guardrails, literally, the guardrails regarding consultations, the guardrails regarding strengthening the democracy at the judicial level, they have started denouncing Court of Appeal judges, and in my view, paying certain experts to come down here to denounce them. A whole host of things have been happening. And I am well aware, too, that governments in and around the Caribbean have had their attention brought to these matters. We have been carrying a line to our plenipotentiaries, if you can call them that, in Trinidad, in Barbados, in and around the Caribbean, that we would like at least articles to be written in these countries as to what's happening in Guyana. And I know for a fact, Trinidad has been very upfront with it in its newspapers and so on. What's happening in Guyana? We have contacts with some of these prime ministers, and their attention has been brought. As to what emphasis they will place on them is another thing. But when you start ensuring that they appreciate the hazards of a Guyana that is disunited, a Guyana that could be mutinous, a Guyana that could have so much resentment by one half of the population, they will start realizing, just like the USAID, just like the IDB, who now are talking in relation to a publication that came out and I saw about healing, not necessarily in Guyana here, but they were talking about Latin America and the Caribbean, and all these the developments that create what is called a mutinous society and so on. It is bad for the Caribbean and Latin America. And with oil here and the stake being so high, there is a demand, a compulsion that we must get it right. Otherwise, we're going to be in big, big trouble. And I believe that that is what the CARICOM leaders with their the secretariat in here in Guyana, not too far away from Georgetown, in Georgetown here. So we have to appreciate that these people will be having a handle on these situations. Diplomats as they are, however, they're not going to go and start publicly making statements which will be so explicit and express that, yes, that is satisfactory to like people like yourself, Mark. But they are going to state it quite clearly to those leaders in Guyana at this conference. Please, we notice that the opposition is not here. Why the leader of the opposition or the former leader of the opposition was not invited? This conference was organized a long time ago. Invitations ought to have gone out to leading members of the opposition and political party leaders and so on. Why not? And they will understand that you know, the people are paying attention. That is the Irfan Alis of Guyana. So don't ever feel that these things are not being stated. And then you have a CARICOM secretariat in Guyana that helps all the other member states understand what is going on in Guyana. And I'm certain that they will be leading the charge in relation to the information getting across. So don't feel, you know, that it is not going to be. And even if we do not get successful tomorrow when we are there to meet any of these leading members, that doesn't necessarily mean the end all. We can also send petitions to them. We can also talk through our plenipotentiaries, people of importance in their country, who can then meet them and tell them what's going on. Reporters, social media reporters like yourself that are in Barbados, and they can very well convey all of this to them.
All right, Mr. Kemrat Ramjatan, we just have a couple minutes remaining. David Patterson with us. Mr. Patterson, I'm not sure if it is accurate, but was the Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago invited to this event?
Well, I mean, I can't tell you if he was invited or not, you know, obviously, but it is surprising that Trinidad is not here. I mean, they are the oldest oil producers in the region. I mean, they've been doing it for almost over 100 years. I mean, they've had oil in Pitch Lake. So they're the most mature oil producing country in the CARICOM. So it's surprising that they were not here. I looked at the list of presenters. I didn't see anybody from the Trinidad oil and gas industry making a presentation. I've seen from all different places. So I mean, but of course we would not know for sure if he was invited or not. But it is a surprise that Trinidad is not fully represented. But Mark, just before thing, I don't want your viewers to think that this is just a question of oil and gas. Under the coalition, every single state board, by policy, by cabinet or cabinet paper, we made a allowance that, and it was a policy that opposition must have a representative on every single state board in the country. Every single, we thought GPL, GWI, you name it, NISIL, CGIA, whatever, Demerara, Harbor Bridge, whatever. And we did that not because of we wanted to be inclusive. We did it so that they could be informed, you know what I mean? So therefore they can know what's going on, so they can be so every time that a state board was formed under the APNU, we wrote to the leader of the opposition and asked him to name a representative. Never did. Right, because they wanted to always play as though they were victims, and they always wanted to be able to come in and I say it on your program because it's not Parliament. They always wanted to be able to come and lie. You know, I mean, they want to come and say lie. The GPL did this, GPL did. But if they had named a representative to one of these boards, he or she would have had the access to all the information, so we would have had informed conversation. That was not done. They particularly excluded themselves, and then they used the Mercuries and those things to say that the opposition they exclude them, but that is not true. And so it's not just oil and gas. I mean, we allow them full access, and people may say maybe that's one of the issues which we would have with them, full access to all our state boards, and I do think that is a massive step in open and improved governance. The question of the Natural Resource Fund, as myself and Kemrat raised yesterday, there's this fund where all the oil proceeds goes into. At the end of December 2021, it has 641 million US dollars in it. They've taken out 607 million out of that monies there, and they have it in our national budget. No one knows for sure what they're going to do with it. That we're already falling on our corruption perception index. And so we have it. So they now have this 27 billion Guyana dollars, very little scrutiny. There's supposed to be a board of governors in place. It's not in place anymore. And they're going to handpick people. You'll see the names that they're picking. They're going to a media blitz. But Mark, I'd ask you and your viewers to do some research on the people that they would be bringing. They would not bring anyone that has been or is analytical. No, they wouldn't bring a Mark Benchcup or a Taran Kemraj or one of those analysts. Clive Thomas or so, who's analytical independent mining. They'll bring some set of people and they'll say the town and they'll do a big PR blitz saying that these guys are experts and they're independent minded. But for sure that most of them will not be. For sure that all they're going to do is review because they've already taken the money out. They've already allocated it out already. So they put the board of government don't even have a terms of reference.
You are correct, Mr. Patterson. They will pick a bunch of cronies, those who can suck up to the PPP, so that Jack Jay can do whatever he likes. That's what it's about. Mr. Ramjatan spoke about this division, but I'd like to talk about this perceived division amongst the opposition and whether the installed regime is using that sort of perceived division, where positions have not been filled, persons have resigned from the parliament waiting to be effective sometime in March, and all these different things. Do you think that's what the PPP regime is using to further divide members of the opposition? Mr. Ramjatan?
Well, it could be a tool in their toolbox. They are very good at utilizing all the tools. And indeed, when there is a division in the opposition, you could very well find that being employed by the party in power. However, it is not my estimation that is very relevant a one now, because the resignation of Dr. Nicolette Henry recently and things like that happened recently. But all the nastiness and the control freakism and the breaking of the guardrails of democracy happened immediately upon the installation of the government into office. So it is just as part of their DNA that they're going to do it. We will have to ensure that those moments where we might see some cracks appearing, to ensure that those cracks are fully, covered up, or at least to the extent of being repaired quickly, so that we can move on as a united united opposition on the very many issues. We have two partners. We are going to have our disagreements on occasions, but that must not mean that, that should be regarded as disunity for the PPP to take advantage of it. And so, yes, I believe that to the extent that we will be disunited, we are not going to be as impactful as we can. But I suspect that the larger population out there realize that is against our disunity, or those sprinklings of it, when compared to the nastiness of how the PPP is conducting its governance issues and doing bad governance and derailing democracy. It is there is no compare. It is incomparable, because they have really done some wrongs, even within their communities. That whole explosive situation of Barrett being caught with his pants down and susuing on himself, that is a huge, huge thing right now. People are now going back to right up to Skeldon Estate. The Indian investor that was supposed to do it, how come literally with the wave of a magic wand, Bharat Jagdeo got the Chinese to come in and do it? No environmental impact, no studies done. Cynic, in a very cynical form. You had it coming on stream, and so on. CNIC is the name of the company that did that. And almost every other project that had huge problems, fiber optics and so many others. We want to know whether indeed there should be further probing, and I believe that there should be further probing into all that Jagdeo was said about Jagdeo by the young girl on that Vice Media when she said that she got all of these truths from this fella called Sue. And there should be a big investigation going on. All across the country, people have really gone silent and are stunned by what they heard, because there was elements of it all along, but now you like you got the thing, the real kagaj here, you know. So it is not necessarily our disunity, but it is the bad governance.
Yeah, so I want to ask Mark this, what exactly is this perceived disunity in a sense, because obviously the question of the leader of the opposition is, I think, Alliance for Change, which myself and Cameron are part of, made a very open and frank and honest statement. We met with Aubrey Norton, and who's the chairman of PNC, not chairman, the leader of the PNC, and then he's the chairman of APNU, and we said to him, you getting into Parliament is a matter of the PNC and APN. The AFC fought diligently to be able to name the right to name our own MPs without interference from anyone else, right to name our own persons, and said we respect your right to do that as well. We said to him, and I could say it publicly, however you do that, right? If whenever you get into to Parliament, if you do get into Parliament, we will support your candidacy for leader of opposition. Until then, we consider the who's in, who's out on the APNU side an internal doctrine and under which you have to do. For the Alliance for Change, for our MPs, our national executive, we had a vote. Everybody who was willing to or who wanted to go into Parliament, we had a vote, and the top 9 names are in Parliament. And I don't know what mechanism is used in the other parties. Should there be a vacancy in the AFC? That's a similar process. Everybody who's eligible, because of course they're in place, and our executives will vote again, and the top person will fill that vacancy. So I don't know what a disunity is. There's just a smoke screen for them to try and to do it, because obviously you can invite both Mr. Harman and Mr. Norton and Mr. Ramchatan. It's thousands of people there, and you can put them each on a different panel if you want to be magnanimous.
All right, stick a pin, Mr. Patterson, as we look at program time. I want to head back to Mr. Ramchatan. It seems as though the guy who's running the show of the install regime is Bharat Jagdeo. Bharat said that if Aubrey is the next opposition leader, hinting that Aubrey will become the next opposition leader, that they are willing to meet with Aubrey Norton as opposition leader. Then days after, Mr. Mark Phillips said that on the one condition, Aubrey will be meeting, or the Mr. Irfan Ali will meet with Aubrey Norton, is if he accepts the legitimacy of the PPP regime. Do you think there's any need for such? And do you accept the PPP as a legitimately elected government?
Well, the Alliance for Change has indicated that in view of the chairman of the Elections Commission making the call that indeed Irfan Ali is the president of Guyana, he's de facto. And we have had problems with the recount process, and the AFC has also joined in questioning the validity of the elections. That elections petition is pending. And of course, the PPP is fighting tooth and nail not to let the petition be heard on all manner of technical grounds. And I think one of the most recent being that they're going now to the CCJ to get something that the Court of Appeal doesn't have jurisdiction and so on. So they want to deny all the discrepancies and everything. However, as we are here right now, the opposition, which includes APNU and also whosoever APNU is going to put up as leader of the opposition, have recognized them because we have taken our seats in Parliament. However, we still question the credibility and the validity of the elections to the extent of our elections petitions contents and all the discrepancies there. So it is not as if they are not the government. When we are opposing their bills, when we are opposing their budget, it is almost all the time they're the government. We are the opposition, and we've been saying that. We have to name the opposition leader now. What is that? So we mustn't quibble or get use the semantics about it. The trouble is that they're there. However, there is a court action which can, in a sense, call for new elections as early as possible, just like we had with the ID card story, voter ID card, and all of that. So it is my view that indeed they're the government. We are the opposition. We descriptively will say that they were installed. They are questionable and all of that. But the trouble is that the country has to move forward. The country has to go on. And there must be no vacuum in governance and government. And that is my whole point about this thing. There are certain legalisms that control the situation, certain constitutionalisms that control the situation. And so we must move on because you can't be in a vacuum. Our narrative will have to always be promoted, just like the PPP's narrative will always be promoted. As to who's going to be the ultimate winner in that narrative, well, we don't know. Elections, when they come, will ensure that, future elections. But that is my take on it, Mark.
So basically, you're a lawyer. You're a seasoned lawyer. I understand your position. You said that the outcome of the elections is still out there. Lots of question marks. The elections petitions are being stymied, especially by the PPP. And my question to you as a seasoned lawyer, Mr. Ramjitan, that you're saying that despite of the questionable outcome of the elections 2020 and the fact that there is this widespread perception that the PPPC was actually installed, you are saying that you are willing to accept them as a legitimate government, but under questionable circumstances.
You can put it in that way, Mark. It is something like the presumption of innocence. Although I've been charged, like you were charged, or anybody else was charged, you still have to have a presumption because, as again, the presumption of innocence. Not because, people will say that, the man is charged for murder. Is he who... You go on. Right now, the chairperson of the Elections Commission, Claudette Singh, Justice of Appeal, has declared them the winner. That is the certificate that says they are the government of the day, the president and all of that. So we will question it, just like when you charge a person, the man will say, well, I'm innocent, but you then go on to prove a case. And to that extent, that is about the best analogy I can bring to the fore at this stage is how we must move on. Otherwise, it will be chaotic, and that might not be a nice scene at all. And so when they are saying, Mark Phillips is saying that we got to make a statement that they are legitimate. If the APNU people don't want to make that statement, well, it is all right with me. The trouble is, why are you making stupid conditionalities like that for an opposition leader when he's going to be made elected or selected inside of that opposition room there in the parliament, not be allowed to speak to the president because assuming Norton does not want to make the statement that you're legitimate. You're not going to have any consultations with Norton? I think it is just stupid politics. It is humiliating politics when all the other activities done by APNU and, of course, the AFC is that we are in the opposition. So it is make a mockery of their inclusiveness and any concept of good governance for them to make a conditionality. I think Mark Phillips has made an error. I think he's willing to withdraw that error. And I rather suspect that once elected, the next leader of the opposition, Norton, is going to meet, and I think there will be no, hurdles confronted.
As you know, in law, there's something called a preponderance of evidence. And what we saw came out of the recount process was that sufficient evidence exists that this PPP regime was installed highly under questionable circumstances, with the evidence there that thousands of fake votes, thousands of questionable votes. I don't know how folks can accept them as legitimate, but that's just my opinion.
No, well, in the interim, Mark, please understand, what do you do? Who is the government of Guyana and who is the opposition? And I mean, we have to confront some of these issues sometimes. We will carry our narratives, but we certainly have to confront it. And you have asked an important question of me this morning. You can't avoid the answers. The answers will have to find some foundation in legality and de facto doctrines. And generally, like in the Grenadian situation, you remember, there was no elections that brought Maurice Bishop into government. But our own chancellor here, Haynes, ruled that being de facto, he becomes de jure and the lawful administration of the day. So until such time as an elections petitions upturn, and I'm being very legalistic here, that is when we will come to the realization that indeed there is no legitimacy. And then it goes back to ab initio, meaning right back to the date of the elections when the results were declared.
All right, let me ask you
this.
Mark,
one of the issues that the PPP, one of the issues of the PPP, forgetting how the opposition sees it, one of the issues they face is exactly that, a question of legitimacy. And they are, and I'm sure everyone that they meet, every time they go, they travel and people interact, and so people question their legitimacy. That is why they're insisting on this silly thing about the opposition leader must say they're legitimate. So they have these challenges of being legitimate, and people are asking, well, Barrett, Irfan, and Todd, what is it but you being legitimate or not? And instead of allowing an election petition, or instead of doing things that will conform to their people that they're legitimate, they're not. And what they want to do is by and by use the opposition to conform. Internationally, they have a legitimacy problem. And these are why they come up with these silly things, demands and those things like that, because people are looking at them in and out of the country as if they're not fully legitimate and inclusionary. So they're trying, instead of demonstrating what they have to do, instead of letting the election petition go through, they're trying to say, oh, well, if the leader of the opposition say I'm legitimate, I'm legitimate. That is,
let me take you guys back when the PPP, when they were in the opposition, and rightfully so, they should have still been there. This is how they behave.
Right across Guyana, when the ministers of Granger or Nagamutu come here after the 21st of March, you say to them, walk behind them, chase them out, they're going to be illegal. Say to them, you're illegal. Free up the country, you're undemocratic. They're going to face a different situation right across the country.
When they come to the communities, whether it is in Berbice or Essecubo and Linden or in South Georgetown or Agricola or in Ennore or Port Morant, the people of Guyana should treat them as illegal. I said they should walk behind them, chase them out of your communities, because it means they've been squatting in power.
Mr. Ramjitan, you're laughing. Chase them out, illegal. Y'all are illegal.
Well,
this and all
that is the madness of Jack Dale. Total crazy fella. Well, he got to live with his susuna upon himself. You understand me? Yeah. And he must learn to take care of that. The people should chase him out for what he did, or is alleged to have done, in relation to all that Vice media interrogation that he got from the young girl. You know, it's a shame.
Mark, we know.
People, 1 second, people are taking that that young lady seriously. In fact, what came out from Irfan Ali today is that apparently the young reporter from Vice News spoke with him too. So he is now telling us that she spoke with him as well. I'd love to see that interview. Mr. Patterson, you were saying something.
Right. And you know, in Guyana, there's well, once there's smoke, there's fire. You know for sure. Well, Guyana is we've taken it literally. There are loads of buildings being burning down and those things like that. I mean, lots of smoke, including the brick dam and those things. But this matter with Sue, it's something that everyone was aware of. I mean, we all heard, we all been hearing it and those things like that. You know, I mean, if you can remember, Mark, and you must go and look for the video clip when they announced the CGIA project. The Chinese vice premier was in Trinidad doing some work, and then all of a sudden there's an announcement in the newspapers. I'll send you the link by the Jamaican newspaper. They've signed this contract for $138 million to build a new extend a new airport. And when questioned in Parliament, this is what Rupson Ben said: that the Chinese people came waving money. Exactly, and they could not. Cameron, you can remember that? And
yeah,
they could
that's
not
not
refuse
true.
it.
Yeah,
But now we know. So
we got the dots right. We got to dot this
now
down.
the dots are being connected. Who they were waving the money at, we have to find out. Who collected the money that they waved and those things like that, and exactly what this Sue affair is going to bring. Because of course, once you start, you pull back that blind and you peek behind that veneer, you realize that several of these things happen. There was a project, the East Coast expansion. Even the Chinese Exim Bank stopped it because they said something is fishy here.
Yes,
Chinese Exim Bank stopped it because we had to come and unlock it and those things like that. You know what I mean? With the Chinese Exim Bank. So who the hell is Sue? As they said, I mean, Sue has burst the bubble, and they're looking for every single excuse, Mark, to deflect away from Sue. But right now, as the guys will say, they're messing bricks because, of course, they don't know how far it will go. But it's like a snowball; it'll keep rolling down, and of course, people start connecting the dots. People start looking and say, "But hold on a second. When this was done, I mean, Bai Shilling was here. Remember, by all the great deals that Bai Shilling had, the logs exported and those things like that. Then people start looking back at things that, Mark, you know about the 426 pounds of gold in Curacao. All of these issues will be start looking back at because the dots are now being revealed, like in the old that connect the dots game we used to play. So all the dots are not going to be linked up now. So they'll be looking into to deflect the opposition. They'll be calling Mark Bench. Mark, to be honest, someone told myself and Kemraj on Friday night, that is yourself and Rick Burke paid the lady to come to Guyana to have the interview. And that Mark and I was quite disappointed to hear that you were in Guyana, you didn't even check me up and buy a beer. That's Friday night, wasn't that, Cameron? Someone told us
yeah,
that.
Right.
And I was saying, well, look how Mark get buddy. In Guyana, you're paying reporters to come to Guyana, and you're in Guyana, you're not even buying a beer.
I am certain that the reporter and her news entity are quite capable to do their research on their own to head to countries like Guyana. This is not the first time that Vice News has been in Guyana that I'm aware of. Vice News goes around the world. That reporter was in China. She interviewed a bunch of people. So no one has to pay the reporter or the news entity to be.
But I'm just saying that, Mark, just
I know
the narrative that they're selling to their people, that Mark Benchcop, right, and Rickford Burke were the ones that instigated this here. They paid for the reporter to come and so on. That's what they're selling to their people to just spread their things. So that's telling you this.
Yeah, that's okay. Jack J and them would say anything. Speaking of that, as we prepare to wrap up, Mr. Ramjatan, you know the man well. You know, or you should know, and you're a lawyer, when he's lying, when he's uncomfortable, or whatever. I want you to take a look at this clip by that Vice News reporter, that young lady, Isabel Young. And Jack Dio's immediate reaction, his body language, his facial expression when he heard the name Sue. Take a look.
Source.
Okay, well,
Maybe the Chinese company that did not get the agreement that they wanted here, maybe they're the ones who told you, or it could be just a fictitious thing.
Okay, well, let's talk about specific individuals. What is your relationship with Mr. Su Jerome?
So my relationship, nothing. He's a tenant in my place. Yeah.
And he's a good friend of yours?
Yeah.
Look, that woman really hit the ball out of the park. If there was a polygraph test there, that thing would have been running like that, which will have indicated that, yes. Yes. So it is very bad. It is very, very bad. And I must say, that he made a mess of it, really, because obviously he was not prepared. You see, Bart loves the center of attention. He likes to be at the center of everything. And that is why he thought that this one was going to be a one where he probably can tell his boys, this is how you carry on. This is how you must handle the press and all of that. But when the lady dropped that soup on he had no way of coming out of it. And his entire body language changed, demeanor, everything. And if you were the foreman of a jury, Mark Benskar, and that was the accused, you know where you were sending him. You certainly knew where you were sending him when he was trying to defend, because his defense tottered completely. And it made him a real mess. And I think...
Have you ever seen Barrett behaved in the manner in which he did when confronted?
No, I have never really. I haven't seen all of his interrogations by the press, but most of the press here in Guyana are very soft with him. And then when he knows that they could be rough, like with Christopher Ram and things like that, he sometimes don't want to go and do the interrogation. But this was one where he somehow was led to believe that it would be a wonderful thing. But he got caught, and ultimately, they said that you're ultimately going to leave traces and you're going to get catch. Yeah. That is what happened here.
Quickly, gentlemen. Barrett denied. This guy Sue allegedly denied, and swiftly. Your take on what, as a lawyer, Mr. Ramjatan, your take on what Sue allegedly said in that statement. Highly suspicious.
Sue, as was alleged by Young, is saying that if you want any project to win any contract to do anything here in Guyana and you want the permission, you largely you got to go to this boss man. And there's a sum that he called that you had to give, or he was given, and things like that, that he is literally the bag man of. And then you see that this thing, right up to changing the constitution. If you want the constitution of Guyana to be changed, you got to go to this man here. And we have been saying that he is the alpha and the omega of the PPP. And we have been saying that. Literally, he's running a term here via the instrumentality of Irfan Ali. And that is the truth. And now, as we have said, he wants to control the commanding heights of the country. And one of the commanding heights of this country is oil. Now, he speaks on oil more than Vikram Bharat, the other Bharat, who has been made de minimis, sort of. He goes and he talks to investors. Peter Ramsarup is heading to Go Invest. Why you don't go there? When we had that thing, what the fellow the name at Go Invest? Yes. We send everybody there because people would like to talk to politicians and so on. He said, no, go straight down there. The fellow knows all the tax laws, all the incentives and so on. But no, this fellow, you got to go and talk to him. What is that for? And he does not go to Parliament to defend his budget. He hardly goes to Parliament. So that is what he does. He does, quite frankly, as the reporting brought out, he wants to meet all them big boys. This is terrible for him. And it will be terrible for the party, the People's Progressive Party.
And I do hope the opposition keep his feet and to ensure that there is a police investigation in this matter.
We intend to.
Yes. Are you at all, Mr. Patterson, comfortable with this landlord-tenant arrangement with a guy who is now questionable?
Well, of course not. But you see that is it. Which one of Barrett's building is he a tenant of? Because what we know in Guyana, he has this building in Pradoville, and then he has one in Queenstown. He said he's his neighbor, which means that he's next to him. So we're now hearing that he purchased the property next to him, next door to his Pradoville too, and it was on the market. I know that for 150 million Guyana dollars. So apparently that is a building that Mr. Sue is rented. But all of those things, and you know, when the financial investigators go through it, because that's a way, maybe allegedly, and this is a hypothetical thing, that's a way of actually passing on funds to someone. You rent a building when the rent was supposed to be $1,000, but he signed an agreement that said the rent is $1 million US a month, and legitimately, so these are all the issues that I'm sure will start unraveling as it comes on. You know, I mean, the tenancy, the rent agreement, and those things like that. You know, I mean, because Mark, you are disappointed you didn't even know that the man that Barrett had an apartment in New York. He admitted he had an apartment in New York, which he sold in when he was in opposition because he wasn't traveling as much. You know what I mean? So we never even knew that until he started blurting out all these issues. You know what I mean? Because of course he's panicking. He's on panic attack. But I say, I mean, the longest twine comes to an end at some time.
Yeah, the longest. And as we look to wrap up here. Now, the opposition, of course, and others want a thorough investigation in this matter. Mr. Ramjatan, Soku seemed to be quiet. The commissioner of police, the one who sits there acting, all of them are quiet on this particular matter because Jack Dave spoke. That's not how a country should run, huh?
Well, that is not how it should run at all. But as you have seen over the past 18 months or 19 months, there has been tremendous amount of changes and alterations, and in my opinion, alterations to the professionalism of especially some of the senior officers of that police force. And I don't want to state it publicly, but there has been what is called a decline in professionalism and lots more. They're taking instructions from Freedom House now. And on certain matters, on others, fine, they do a pretty good job. But it is like these matters, they're going to want to say, there's nothing, no report came to hand. We can't develop an investigation based on no reports and so on. But you can.
But let me stick a pin, Mr. Ramjatan. Do forgive me for that. As a lawyer, you should know that if, for example, you guys compile that interview, portions of that interview where the reporters question him about allegations of corruption. Take all of those things, walk into Soku, present it, let the public know that this is what you guys have done, and leave it in the hands of Soku.
Yeah, you come up with a bright idea there, Mark. That could be done. And a dossier on the dots that we are saying are being connected now. We have done dossiers before. Wonderful idea. And so they can't then say that we didn't get a report.
They didn't get anything.
Yeah.
But to sit there and expect them to do anything, you are correct as well. We need to find out, the people need to find out whether this is the property because this is Jack Dave's mansion, whether he's referring to that property obliquely opposite his mansion, whether that's where this guy is renting and this guy is Sue, whether this is where Sue is renting, how much he's renting for, and also since this property, assuming that this is the property, was on the market recently.
It was on the market, that's correct. It was on the market for $150
million. Let Jack Dave state publicly where he got the money from and what's the real deal behind him purchasing that property. I don't know. We've got to go though. Mr. Ramjatan, you're smiling, and every time you smile, we can go on and on and on.
No.
Why are you smiling?
Bring it to an end here, Balram. It is important.
Why are you smiling, though?
I am smiling because look how you get the shots there. You know, I don't know. I don't have those capacities to find these shots and so on from. You got a satellite above or something, or is a drone?
Or you never know. But look, even as we speak, this is what's happening. Glenn Lal and others are out there protesting. It is certainly effective. They're there. The oil belonged to Guyanese. They're out there protesting, and I commend those individuals who are out there. I salute them. I hope you guys are close by. It's not too late to rush down there at all, Kamraj and David. It's not too late. In closing, Mr. Ramjatan, now Barrett wants, when the leader of the opposition is appointed, that they should meet so that the members of state board, the opposition members, can be part and parcel, and they will be consultation with the opposition leader. Now he wants to talk about state boards and opposition members being on state board and consultation with the leader of the opposition when that vacancy is filled for the Judicial Service Commission, the Police Service Commission, and other commissions. Suddenly he finds useful the leader of the opposition, but yet in such a big event, the Oil Gas Expo, the opposition parties are completely shut out. What will be the approach, you think, of the APNU AFC opposition as it pertains to that invitation and consultation for these commissions to be filled?
Well, look, it is never too late. And we would want to have our representatives there to get the information as to how things are being managed in these various commissions and boards. It is useful information always when you get it from directly the horse's mouth, and that is one of the benefits of having opposition members there. The other thing is also to know how and what are the recommendations for improving these boards and commissions and the manner
of course, the promotions. We have
exactly
very,
promotions
very
of members of the police force.
Who if you want to take a thing there, we would like to overtell that they would be professional. That several senior policemen are due to retire this year shortly.
That's right.
So you want to ensure that the promotions that were there can happen, so there could be a natural succession plan and those things like that. So we want a country to keep going on, because remember always, Mark, that the opposition is a government in waiting, right? So we would like to ensure that when we get back there, we have something, not like what we had in 2015, that we have some sort of functioning democracy and institutions and those things like that. So, if not, we spent 2015, 2020 repairing everything. The Integrity Commission was not in place. Public Procurement Commission was not in place. None of those things happening. So when we appointed them, how effective they weren't effective we would have liked them to be, because they had to start from scratch. So we would like these functioning institution in place. So therefore, whenever the next election you get back in office, you could right away have an Integrity Commission report, which shows you what the assets and of people who come under the Act, the Public Procurement Commission and those things like that. They had to start from scratch in 2015, write up their own operational procedures, standard operation procedures, hire their own staff, find their own accommodation and those things. We wanted functioning. We wanted there so that when we get back in, that it can serve the people as it's intended to do.
All right, thank you so much for your time. Even if it's a last minute, I ask you guys to come on. And I will ask Mr. Ramjatan for his brief closing remarks. This Oil Expo, it's an embarrassment. It shows a division in Guyana, all compliments of the installed regime. The fact that the main opposition parties have not been invited to this conference. I do hope that when you guys walk about tomorrow at that conference, that you're able to run into the Prime Minister of Barbados, the presidents of Ghana and Suriname, and let them know what is really happening in Guyana. Your closing remarks, Mr. Ramjatan.
I want to inform your viewership here, Mark. Stay tuned. There is massive disinformation that will be showered on the Guyanese government radios and so on. They are a pack of liars. The good governance of the APNU AFC government is beyond compare to the damage that has been done here now to good governance, especially in the recent Susu affair. Okay? So please stay tuned. Don't bother with the explanation and pretext that they're going to give you. It's all a bundle and tissue of lies. And they can come with very straight faces now and try to bring out the excuses. So please don't bother with them. Stay tuned to the Mark Benchcops, the Shara Duncans, and the others that give the truth here and question and interrogate.
You've been practicing law for a while, and sometimes lawyers say final question, but they always have another question. The NRF, you said, Mr. Ramjatan, and this is my final question, sir. The NRF said, you said that the AFC is willing to appoint someone in that position. The APNU is saying something totally different through the voice of the chief whip. Is there any conflict there, sir?
Well, I realized the conflict afterwards, but whatever it is, our honest position, which is consistent to what we were just mentioning to you about commissions and boards, is that we have to, notwithstanding the fact that it is a flawed act, far inferior to what we did in 2019, we still have to put up these members and try to get the best nominees as far as possible. Now, if we can't get the nominees because they put forward, as David was mentioning, they're going to come with their Jagabat or whosoever it is, we will then publicly denounce that. But you must not lose sight of the fact that you have yourself in the ring so that you can fight to put in a nominee or a best nominee. And
it's a lot of money, but it's millions, hundreds of millions of US dollars, Mark, you know what I mean? And if you just totally shut yourself out, how can you literally say the discriminatory practices? Very soon people start saying it how they're only spending in certain communities and those things like that. We have a Mark Benchcup on that board, even if he's just there, so he can say, listen to me, these are the communities that they're spending on, here are the facts. If we don't get a Mark Benchcup or somebody like that nature independent on that board, they'll continue doing it. So what we need to do, you need your man in the ring. You need your woman in the ring. You need your somebody in there fighting on behalf of you, saying, I came and I said, why you keep bypassing this particular community with its hundreds of billions of US dollars. And the minutes of that meeting will show that the Mark Benchcup brought it to the people that you're discriminatory. So therefore, when we go to the people, it's not hearsay. We got Kardash.
I want to thank you as I bring the curtain down. Mr. Ramjatan, thank you so much for your time. Mr. Patterson, same to you. You guys have a great day. Now the curfew has been lifted. Y'all still be careful, gentlemen.
Thank
you.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Have a good day.
You too, Kamraj. All right. You've heard both members of parliament, Mr. Ramjatan, Mr. Patterson, talking about a whole host of issues in Guyana. And a lot of you may agree with some of you may disagree with others, but it is okay. It's part of democracy, right? I know a lot of you guys want boots on the ground, real boots on the ground. I know a lot of you guys want to see them out there in the streets. So do I, without any excuses. And one doesn't have to be in any particular position, elected to be in any position, to hit the streets. Examples of that happened in the past, where persons who were not elected officials, they were not in parliament, they were not leaders in that political sense, but they were there, very effective, with boots on the ground. It's a shame that the PPP regime, the installed PPP regime, they have ignored members of the opposition. They have not invited members of the opposition to that expo, that oil expo. And the hypocrisy coming out of the mouths of those PPP, quote unquote, leaders is a shame and a disgrace. They are the ones who who are dividing Guyana, and they must be stopped by any and every legal means necessary. I commend these folks who are out there protesting even as we speak. Glenn Lal is not an elected official. Glenn Lal and others, they're not elected officials. They're not in parliament. They're not opposition leaders. They're not leaders of any political party. But yet, they are out there protesting for something that is right, so that they can get the message, to those visiting dignitaries and let them know that things are not regular in Guyana. I don't know. This here, all of the 31 or so MPs for the opposition should have been out there. But they're not. You know, they are not. And it is sad that they're not. The leaders of the APNU-AFC coalition and other parties, including the National Front Alliance, including a party that was formed by Ms. Tabeta Haley, Sarabu Haley, the party that was formed by Jaipal Sharma, the AFC, the PNC, all of them should have been out there protesting. Thousands of them should have been out there protesting. Not just talking, not just issuing statements, not just finding excuses not to protest, but they should have been out there. I don't know. But thanks to these brave people who are out there, I salute them. See you guys this evening on Straight Up. Thanks to all our listeners on Ben Sharp Radio, on CAMS TV, and other pages who shared today's program. God bless you all, and God bless that beautiful country. So long.